السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. لعل أوغندا وصفت بالعالم الجديد الرائع، حيث المشهد مختلف والطبيعة والنباتات والأشجار مختلفة والمناخ مختلف، والأهم من كل ذلك أن الشعب الأوغندي أيضا مختلف مقارنة بغيره في النطاق الكامل لأفريقيا. كل من تعاطى بالشأن الأفريقي خرج بانطباعات مميزة عن هذا البلد الخلاب. وينستون تشرشل وصف الأوغنديين بأنهم مهيبون وأنيقون، وأطلق على أوغندا اسم لؤلؤة أفريقيا، وهو اللقب الذي ما زالت الحكومة تستخدمه في كتيبات السياحة اليوم. ومع ذلك فقد لوحظ أيضاً أن هنالك جوانب معقدة وبغيضة لم يكن من السهل دائماً رؤيتها. وعلى الرغم من أن أوغندا لا تزال واحدة من أجمل البلدان في أفريقيا، وأن الأوغنديين من أكثر الناس تعلماً وطيبة في القارة، إلا أن حقبة ما بعد الاستقلال شهدت مراحل طويلة من الاضطرابات والوحشية والحكم الاستبدادي، ولكن ما لبثت أن تخطت البلاد ذلك إلى نمو وازدهار اقتصادي، والتغني بأوغندا باعتبارها قصة نجاح أخاذة لأفريقيا، بيد أنها باتت منذ الأمس القريب عرضة لخطر التحول إلى مأساة أفريقية أخرى بحسب المراقبين. لكن لماذا؟ يطيب لنا أن نستقبل من العاصمة الأوغندية كامبالا الصحفي الأوغندي البارز سداب كيتاتا كايا. أهلا بكم إلى حلقة جديدة من الداخل، معكم زينب صفار، تابعونا. Sudab Kitata Kaya, prominent Ugandan journalist with The Observer, joining us from the capital city of Kampala. Welcome to In the Dakhel from the inside, Sudab.
Thank you.
Pleasure to have you. Once Uganda was hailed as one of Africa's real compelling success stories, yet today it is at risk of becoming another African tragedy. In the past few years, growing concerns have been raised both inside and outside of the country about emerging trends that could undermine and imperil the important progress that Uganda has made over the past 3 decades. Let's talk about the multiple challenges, Sudab, the issues of concern that face Uganda today.
Growing up as a child, actually, the current government came to power when I was beginning school. So I'll be right to say that I have not seen any other government other than the one we are having, the government of President Yoweri. Yes, he started off as a promising president, a promising leader. I remember during his early days, he was being referred as the new breed of African leaders. Him with Rwanda's Paul Kagame and some others I cannot really recall. But now, because he started with promises that he was to keep power for 4 years. Then we saw him changing. His tenure was extended, and eventually, when the current constitution was enacted in 1995, October 6th, in 1995. He ran for elections because the first democratic elections were held in the following year, 1996. In the constitution, there was a clause which limited presidential terms to 2 years. But after the expiry of his 2 terms, that is 2005, because it's a 5-year term, a 5-year presidential term. 2005, we had the constitution amended now to remove the term limits. But we remained with with a clause which limited the presidential age. One would not contest for president if they are 45 years and above. But 2 years back, 2017, we also had an amendment scrapping this constitutional provision, which limited, because the president now is 76 years.
To remove the age limit.
Because we are going to have elections next year, January and February, for general
2021.
elections.
True.
Yes. But with that constitutional provision in place, President Yoweri Museveni would not qualify for re-election. He was ineligible to stand for re-election in 2021. So they had to remove that provision, now to open it up such that he can be able to run again for president.
Sudab, what are the issues of concern?
The issues of concern here is Uganda has not witnessed a peaceful handover of power. All the presidents we've had, 9 presidents so far, but is through the use of guns, through forceful means, that one president has moved and another one come in. So these constitutional provisions offered hope that we were to see a peaceful transfer of power from one president to another. But now with this constitutional provision removed, it became hard. All hope was lost for a peaceful transfer of power.
Right. What about the opportunities, especially as you approach the elections, Sudab?
The opportunities, anyone observing what is going on in the country today, because already our elections have always been characterized by intimidation, voter bribery, and many other things. At least these are things that have gone to court, and courts have pronounced, the Supreme Court of Uganda has pronounced itself on this. And actually, there are recommendations that they have made, the Supreme Court has made, intended to improve the conduct of elections in Uganda. But unfortunately, some of these recommendations have not been honored. Some of these recommendations have been ignored. And also there have been attempts by the civil society and other players calling for electoral reforms, which have largely been ignored. So hope for a peaceful election, hope for free and fair elections next year is so slim. It is so slim, and instead, yesterday I was talking to some politicians, because it is 3 months into the new financial year.
Right.
But already we are seeing the government coming to Parliament with a supplementary budget request. And looking at the trends of the previous elections, usually every election year, our public expenditure goes up. And it is suspected that this money, the reason why our public expenditure goes up is because a lot of money is used to facilitate the ruling party's electioneering.
So corruption. We are talking about corruption.
Yes, we have.
Right.
We have quite a number of cases.
Allow me, Sudab, to ask you here something. President Museveni, in office since 1986, has been a frequent critic of African political parties and a reluctant supporter of a full return to multi-party politics in Uganda. Today, some top leaders of Uganda's traditional churches have served notice that they may not be ready to support President Museveni's re-election bid next year in 2021. What aspects changed the mood of the Ugandans?
Well, I wouldn't want to take the statements of the clergymen because I doubt whether, very few of them will stick to their word. Very few. And the majority of them, because of the poverty in Uganda, because of personal interests and all that, usually when money comes in, you see them changing their goalposts. Sometimes they make these statements they use the election season as a bait for them to get what they want from Museveni. So it is very possible that, because I remember a few weeks back I wrote a story where some NRM leaders, the National Resistance Movement, NRM is the ruling party here, they went around visiting leaders of different religious groups. And actually one of them there, the Archbishop of the Orthodox Church in Uganda, mentioned that he was not going to participate in the elections because he mentioned hypocrisy and unfulfilled promises and quite a number of things. But for that single person, yes, because when you trace back his statements, at least he's been consistent. But when you come to other religious leaders, many of them usually go away from their word. And it will not be surprising to see some of them giving coded messages for support for the current regime.
Right. More on the challenges and the perspectives in Uganda today with سداب كيتاتا كايا, but after the break إذا فاصل قصير ونعود. لا تذهبوا بعيدا. أهلا بكم من جديد. سداب كيتاتا كايا, prominent Ugandan journalist. Welcome back to من الداخل from the inside, sir. Well, Sudab, a diplomat, notes that in the years before Museveni took over, Uganda's jails were full of journalists, opposition politicians, and political prisoners. Museveni turned this around, steadily releasing those who had been incarcerated by previous regimes and releasing those who had been opposed to his own movement. Yet, it's quite controversial today. As a journalist, Sudab, how free is freedom of expression and of assembly in Uganda today? And you are just giving us a big smile. Well, it's a smirk, rather.
Freedom of expression in Uganda. Well, at the time Museveni came to power, we had a few media houses operating. There was only one radio and TV station owned by the state. Today we have hundreds of radios and hundreds of TVs. No, not hundreds, but yes, a good number of TV stations.
TV stations, yes.
Yes. But yes, there is some bit of freedom, but again, you cannot say that it is the freedom that one can take pride in. For instance, currently there is an ongoing the Uganda Communications Commission, the regulator of broadcasters and all that, has issued a directive. They want now to start controlling social media accounts. For example, if I have some few followers or both on Facebook and Twitter. But if I attempt to make, like, to do Facebook Live, for example, the Uganda Communications Commission announced that we have to seek their permission. In other words, they want to issue licenses to us to use our social media platforms.
So censorship is very stiff in Uganda today.
I will say there is censorship in Uganda. They are because we have seen in the previous years attacks on media houses being closed because my own newspaper,
The Observer,
where I was as a reporter, has suffered because one time it was closed. The other media houses like the Daily Monitor is one of the biggest selling newspapers here.
So
it was closed for weeks because they had published, that was in 2014, they had published a letter which was written by one of the generals in the army who was critical of some government programs. There was a push within government, and because this general criticized it, he was the coordinator of intelligence services.
Yes.
And the Telemonitor was closed. We have seen radios that have been shut for several years, for not years, months, because they have aired something that is not pleasant to the government. So censorship is there.
There is no freedom of expression, so to say, Sudab, today in Uganda. But my question, allow me here to ask you, please, does Uganda continue to receive high marks for it once received high marks for its open and vociferous political debate, for its free market economic reforms, for the progressive economic vision that the President Museveni has long championed? What about today, Sudab?
Because now today we are seeing, actually from the time we moved from the movement system to multipartyism, we have seen a crackdown on many political leaders have been jailed because of their political views. And I really don't want to say that, yes, there is, if you are to go with what is visible, they will tell you we have too many political parties, politicians, but they cannot freely, for example, opposition MPs cannot freely meet their constituents. Opposition leaders cannot freely, because according to the law, 1 year to the elections, a presidential aspirant is allowed to move around the country consulting. But today, the few presidential candidates that have tried to move have either have got arrested, they have been tear gassed, that all sorts of funny things have been done to them. So I don't know whether I can call that a free society. I don't know whether I can call that a repressive society, but it is all out there. But yes, we are seeing some semblance of democracy, but it is not, you cannot say it is fully democratic.
Right. Now, President Museveni recognized the devastating impact of HIV/AIDS on his country and was the first major African leader to publicly speak out about the dangers of AIDS. He mobilized his entire government to combat this threat, and he established Africa's first nationwide prevention efforts. Today, Sudab, how is Uganda and the Ugandans dealing with the coronavirus?
I think Uganda is one of the countries that has had, let me say, successful stories in as far as dealing with the spread of COVID-19. In the first months, we had strict regulations against meetings, against. There was a total lockdown, and the numbers, the cases were kept so low. We were only getting new cases from the truck drivers because the borders, much as the borders were closed. But
when you have travelers coming from abroad, they bring along the coronavirus, right?
No. I'm talking about truck drivers these that cross from one country to another with goods, transporters of merchandise, because the president said that it would be suicide to close the trade routes. So the trade routes remained open. But casual travelers were not allowed to move in and out of the country. But now, when they started relaxing the restrictions, we saw a surge in the cases of infections. I think we are over 8,000 now. We have over 8,000 cases now, and some deaths, less than 100 deaths. But that was after the relaxation of the restrictions. So the president had approached it quite well, but now in later months, when the election hearing period set in, we saw a relaxation, and now it became also too challenging. Much as he was announcing these restrictions against gatherings, against political meetings, members of his own political party were holding processions, we are holding campaigning meetings.
Sure, it's election season. Sure.
Yes. And so, much as the police will stop the opposition groups from meeting, the challenge has been with members of the ruling NRM. We have seen huge processions.
Right.
I personally, I went and on the day of their primary elections.
Right.
I was there, but processions continued into the wee hours of the night.
Right.
So it became pretty difficult for the police to enforce the law on the side of the NRM politicians.
Right. From Kampala, Sdab, Keitada, Kaiya, Ugandan journalist, thank you very much for your insights. Always a pleasure to have you. Bless you and be safe.
Thank you.
والشكر لكم مشاهدينا الكرام على طيب المتابعة. للتفاعل أكثر تابعونا على صفحات السوشيال ميديا من كل فريق عمل من الداخل من كل الميادين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.